Law School. I don't know how many are familiar with Albany Law School. We have John Sowder, am I pronouncing that right? From Ave Maria School of Law, and Brent Johnson from Washburn Law Library. I'm going to be talking the majority of the time, hopefully not too long, for the beginning portion. And then Brent's going to speak about a particular program that his school is using to do some interactive between students and faculty. And John is going to talk about maybe the process of how to work with an instructional technologist. Does that sound okay? Okay. Of course, I use PowerPoint because I'm an instructional technologist, and that's what people do. So here's our first slide. We're going to move on to the next one. Who do we usually work with? Our population that we work with are obviously faculty. Our main role as an instructional technologist is to work with faculty, but also to work with students, to work with staff, and to work with departments. Not many people, I believe, are aware of the interaction that we may have with students or with departments in general. Departments, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more extensively as we go on. But we do have a little interaction with departments. I do have to speak for myself. I'm not sure if they have interaction with departments, but I do. And there's a lot of features that you do with departments where you meet with maybe the head of the department or a variety of departments and talk about what they're currently using, how they're currently doing a process, and how they may be able to use technology to help out their department to maybe make a process run more smoothly or more efficiently. A lot of times it's really just, they just need a training on how to do a particular product or how to use a particular product. Or they've heard of products, but they're not sure what they are. They really want to know how to use them. So what are some of the things that we do? Web design. I particularly play a large role in web design for faculty. What I do is a lot of marketing to try and get faculty to create a web page at first. There's a lot of marketing that goes into that. You have to reach out faculty and target faculty to get them to create web pages and actually get them to understand why it is important to have a web page, especially for students. So a lot of the time I am doing a lot of marketing, but once I do get a faculty's attention and do get them to understand how to work with creating a web page and what a web page would be used for students, at that point we're talking about design, how to what you would want to put on a web page. Would it be your syllabus? Would it be old exams? Could it be resume type information like your publications? There's also, we have some discussion groups that we put on our web. We have some video conferencing, not video conferencing, but video and audio that we put on our website as well. So anything that you can think of that would actually make a student learning environment better. We also have some faculty members that create web pages but don't have them for students. They actually have them because they're going abroad to other locations, and they want to use it because they put maybe a page of links that they usually go to so they can access that information. So there's different ways that you can use the web. My majority of focus is how to get the faculty to use it for students, because that's really what my focus and target is how to get technology in the classroom. Electronic exams. This has kind of been an ongoing battle of what's the best way to get exams electronically more efficiently. There's a lot of products out there that you can use, and what my job and position is to kind of make sure I research all of those electronic exams and make sure that we have all the information that we need to have and it's easy to use. Right now we're exploring ExamSoft extensively, but there's a lot of products out there. Also a way of grading the exams. I know a lot of times you're looking at faculty and sometimes administrative assistants grading multiple choice exams, or faculty sitting through essays exams, and they're having difficulty reading it. So we're trying to look at how to grade these items as well. So a lot of my time around exam time can also be is with how to grade exams, how to show faculty how you're going to write directions for these specific exams. But it's also dealing with special accommodation students. And I don't know how many of you, I'm sure you all deal with special accommodation students, but reserving a room, showing them how to use the computer to use and take an exam, sitting with them, kind of talking them through it. So there's a lot of student interaction there as well. The instructional technologists that are here, do you also do a lot with, just by raising hands, you don't have to speak, do you also do a lot with exams as well? Any kind of exam corporation? You do. Okay, I'm just trying to get a sense of what other people are doing. I think the air condition is not working. Does anybody have information on that? Because I'm dying. It's not working. Okay, I didn't think so. Okay. It is really warm in here. Department Computer Utilization Consultant, that's a huge fancy term for nothing, really. No. What it means is what I was talking about before, is my work with departments and what we would do. The computer department as a whole work with departments all the time, trying to figure out what's the best way to use technology, how to use technology. Training is a huge part of my job, helping people use the right technology the right way. Is a huge piece of it. But sitting down with departments as a whole and figuring out what they're currently doing and how they can work to improve or enhance that area. For instance, if you're working with, there's a lawyering staff, for instance, that have a variety of uses for calculating some grades, but not really kind of keeping track of it in our regular database, our usual database, but kind of keeping track of assignments. They have various assignments. What they were doing is actually handwriting. They were having their administrative assistant just handwriting this sort of tedious process of putting all their grades on paper, and then she was typing it out in like a word processing document. So very simply, we have two choices for them, and they can make the choices however they want to do. They can use Microsoft Access or Excel, because we're not promoting Access because we have another database that we're using, or they can use our administrative database to do all this information. It's their choice. We leave it up to them. We just tell them their options and what the choices are and how they're able to access this information, and then how to use it, and on a regular basis, and we provide support. So those are the kinds of things. Another area would be, maybe we have a clinical department that deal with clients on a regular basis, and it's more of a secure, confidential environment. And we just last year initiated some kind of calendaring system for them to keep track of students working with clients and staff and how to meet with faculty. So there's a lot of, there's a different routes that you can take with working with departments, and it really depends on the need. But with that, we do a full needs assessment, meeting with them, talking them out, asking them the right questions. So there is a huge part of it dealing with working on needs. Computer application training, I said this before. Faculty, staff, students, and departments as a whole do training in all Microsoft applications. Everyone loves Microsoft, so we do Microsoft application training. We also do a variety of training in other areas, specialized areas, depending on what they need. For instance, I mentioned the calendaring system. So we create a process, we work with the department on the process, and then we do a training for it. So any kind of training needs. We also have, obviously, I'm the only instructional technologist at the law school, so I can't train everybody. So we have some external training available as well. We reserve some budget money, and there's also, I think, tuition reimbursement money as well that people, staff, or faculty can use for training. So if they want some specialized training that for one person, maybe Adobe Premiere to do some video conferencing or streaming, we'll send them to some external training. So it's working with these variety of partners and vendors, making sure that there's an environment so people have support and help that they need. Any questions so far? I hate to hear myself talk, so if anybody wants to add something, no? Happy crowd. Student communication. This is a new focus of mine for this year, is kind of focusing how we can increase student communication between faculty and between themselves, not only off campus, but on campus. So there's a variety of things we're trying to create there. One thing that we have created at the law school with the help of our Unix system administrator is creating a web environment in which a faculty member can have kind of discussions with students just using HTML. So the students bring their laptops into the class. The faculty member has their laptop. They present and post some questions on the screen and at the overhead, either way. And the student will basically have kind of like a form, an HTML form. They type in their response. They have a certain period of time to type. And it depends how they want to do that. The faculty members, the couple that are using it, have chose to use it differently. One faculty member gives a paragraph of questions or comments, and the students have about 3 minutes or so to kind of think about it, process it, and answer it. That gives them some individuality, so they're not raising their hands. They don't have to say who they are. The responses come back anonymously. Yes?
Can you give us an idea of how many people are on your staff, how many faculty members you have, and how many students you have, and then also to whom, I guess, correctly, to whom you report?
I'm actually located in the Computer Resources Department, so that's where I'm housed. A lot of instructional technologists can be in the Library Department as well, but I am actually with the Computer Department. I report to the Director of Computer Resources, so that's kind of where I'm housed. We have about a full-time faculty staff of about, we've been hiring, so I'm unsure the number. It was about 54 as of, I think, yesterday, so it could be different. But it's about 54 full-time faculty. We have adjunct professors, which range. And then the student population, we have about 800 students at this point. Did that answer your question? Absolutely.
You were saying that the faculty member provides a hypothetical or a fact situation. The student has an opportunity to respond. Can the faculty member then, within an electronic classroom, look at the various student responses? How do they get back to the faculty member, and are faculty members using them real time in class?
Me personally repeat the question? Okay, I think her question was, there was a lot of pieces, is one, how are the faculty receiving the responses from students? So I'll start with that one first. Faculty, you have a couple choices. In the environment that I was describing, within a classroom, it's an HTML form. The students are connected to the internet. They're filling out the HTML form. When they send the form, it actually shows up all of their content, whatever we decided or the faculty have decided to put. It could be their name. Some have chosen not to put their name. It could be the subject. It could be, just the message that they want to convey, or it could be the email address as well. Whatever the faculty wants back to them will come back. And what the faculty sees is essentially a web page environment. It could be just essentially it starts off as a white blank kind of screen. And the faculty basically has to keep hitting refresh a couple of times, and the new messages come in as the students fill them out. The faculty then has a choice, because their other question is, then what does the faculty do with it, I think. The faculty has a choice. They could, show all those responses up on the screen if they want to. It depends what they're trying to achieve. Or they just have it on their laptop and they tend to respond to them either individually or they'll respond to them as a group. And whether they want to call on the person is up to the faculty member. If they want to leave it anonymous, that's up to them too. So again, a lot of faculty flexibility there in what they are looking to accomplish for the communication. Did I answer all of your questions? Yes. Right now we have 3. We just initiated it as of January. We also don't currently have a laptop requirement. So it's a little hard to initiate something when other students are unable to participate. In that situation, what we're doing is the students are able and can take out a piece of paper and write a response. And they would then put the paper up on the faculty desk before they leave. They don't have to put their name on it if the faculty doesn't want them to. If they do, then the faculty usually will get back to them through email in that sense. He asked me what's keeping the law school from initiating a laptop requirement. It's a very good question. I don't know if I have all of the information to answer that correctly. It's more of an administrative question. No response. Yes.
How many schools represented here do have a laptop requirement?
By show of hands, how many schools here have a laptop requirement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 15 represented. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are considering a laptop requirement. Public schools that have laptop requirements is the question. 1, 2, 2. Little stats for you there. For those at home who can't see that, those are the stats. Any other questions about that? Did you have one in the question in the back? Did you have a question? No? Just yawning? Stretching? Okay. I'm not sure if I completed my thought about the student communication, that particular one. There's obviously other things that we can do. We have chats. We create email groups for each class if the faculty wants to. So if the faculty has a criminal law class, we make sure all those students are represented in a group so the faculty can email all those students information. We have discussion software that faculty can use if they want to have a discussion with students and set up kind of an online chat environment, but controlled more by the law school. So we do have a couple of things, and I'm not sure if I'm leaving, obviously email.
Can you answer whether you have Blackboard or Twin or some
Yep.
other
The question was, can I answer whether or not we have Blackboard or Twin or Lexis, I believe is the other one. We don't choose, we do use those. We don't have Blackboard, however. We don't choose which one the faculty will use. Obviously, we don't require faculty to do much things. But we are actually, I have a lot of faculty using Twin at this point, and it is a good resource for faculty to use. So we do have faculty using Twin, and we actually are encouraging faculty to use it. We have a session coming up in August on the 14th for faculty to learn more about Twin and how to use Twin. So, yes.
Do you know about what percentage of the faculty are actually using Twin?
We have 14 faculty using Twin. And they're not just using it for one class. Each of them have, a variety of classes that they're teaching and use it for that. I'm going to move a little bit more quickly because I'm looking at the time and we still have 2 more people to speak. So, classroom equipment training, all this stuff here, you don't know how to use it, I help you. So that's the gist of classroom equipment training. Whether it's a document camera or the Elmo, using a laptop, other stuff. How to turn on a projector and use a Crestron unit. Are many of you familiar with a Crestron unit? Not all schools have them, but they are available to use. It is. You can come up afterwards and look at it if you want to. This right here is a Crestron unit. It looks like a little mini screen, but it basically is the controls for all the room. The lights, the projector, slide, the screen, the actual projector, your laptops, toggling between the different equipment, between the document camera, all those kinds of things. And not all schools have them. They have to be bought, obviously, and programmed and customized for your school. So we have one, and it's not exactly the same as this particular one. So we even needed a little initial kind of where to get around and move around in the Crestron. AV services. AV services, as far as video and audio, I personally don't do too much with audio. But video, we are just starting to get moving on video conferencing and video streaming. We're only at the initial stages, so we're not too advanced with it. However, Brent, who is an instructional technologist located in the library, does do more video. What do you do?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, my office at Washburn is behind the circulation desk. So I guess that makes me a logical person to handle the AV requests on a daily basis when the semester starts. And I've been on board at Washburn 8 months, and it was initially difficult setting up lines of communication of who the faculty, who the staff needed to talk to reserve an AV. If they needed a taping of the classroom, or if they needed audio for a component of their PowerPoint, they would come up at the circulation desk. They would fill out a little sheet, and then well, that sheet would mysteriously get lost, and I wouldn't know about it until 5 minutes after it was supposed to have happened, and they come stirring up. So, due to an evolutionary process of the faculty and the people at the university getting to know me, that's all it is opening up lines of communication. Get in touch with me by email, get in touch with me by phone. Come see me at the circulation desk, because I'm there seemingly every hour of the week, and I'll hook you up. So, AV requests during the school year take up a significant component of my time. Now, some law schools have a dedicated AV specialist. How about a show of hands for that? Oh, interesting.
About 25. Oh. Do you want to?
Yes, I'm on stage.
Yeah, why don't we just move right to you? There you go.
See, this is AV guy doing his job right now, making the microphone work. It's.
Brent's going to talk about the product that he's using.
First of all,
Yes.
I don't know if you can address this, but is that sort of a deliberate choice in the sense that, teaching a staff member to use Word in some ways does contribute to the educational mission, or is that more just sort of by default because there's nobody else who can do it?
I think it's a combination of those things. It was a new position. I pretty much had the option of creating it pretty much any way that I wanted to at that point. And incorporating some of the staff training just made sense. I'm certified in Microsoft, so it made sense to take that route. And I think it does help in the long run to have all the administrative assistants focusing on what they need to focus on in order to accomplish their job, and it helps faculty, and it helps to have everybody up to date on technology. So.
Following up on that, is there anything that you try to stay? I guess it's better. Is there anything you try to stay away from if possible, so you can focus more on what you thought was more important? And I know if you're doing so many different things, that is really nuts.
The question is there anything I try and stay away from to focus on certain items? And the answer is yes, and it depends on the day and of the week. It depends on the need, too. So I could be focusing on one thing for 1 month, maybe, or even 2 weeks, and then the next month I'm toggling through a whole series of different projects and tasks. But they're always ongoing, so I think every position's like that. You're always kind of a little juggler. Yes?
Question about your training. You said you do bring in, you outsource some of your training. The training that you do, do you publicize the training sessions? Do you target them to a particular group? Is it ongoing throughout the year?
It's ongoing throughout the year. I target everyone on various levels depending on what I think their need may be and what they've told me their need was. I market constantly. Advertising on the intranet, internet, through email, through postings, any way I can get their attention, stand in the hall and yell, whatever. Absolutely every single person. Students also are invited to take training as well to use whatever application. The majority ones they seem to be interested in are PowerPoint, WordPerfect, and Microsoft Word.
And did you create your documentation, use published materials?
I do use some proprietary software or proprietary material that I create, but I've also found great
Element K curriculum. I don't know if you're familiar with Element K, but I've kind of trained with that, so I've kind of stayed consistent with using some of their material.
One more question. How long are your training sessions?
Depending on the population, I range in between 2 hours, a half a day, and a full day, because a lot of people don't have time. So I try and, if I can make it 2 hours or 2-part sessions, people tend to attend those more frequently than a 1 day or half a day training.
Can I ask how many people are in a typical training session?
Staff are usually a large size, maybe a large size, probably 12 or under is enough for a computer training. Faculty could range between 5 or few. Faculty really prefer one-on-one training, to be honest. I mean, that's really what they like. So, on page for that.
Have you had any success having your faculty use any of the electronic training materials, the Element K stuff, or any other online training?
We have had the online training for Element K for a year, but we discontinued use because we did have 97 individuals get a username and password. But I found once they had username and password, and after 2 weeks, they rarely used it. What we're doing now is creating CBTs and WBTs using a program or a software called RoboDemo. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. And doing it that way. These is housed on our own, and we create a CD collection, and then we're also going to have a web environment.
One thing we did at Tulsa that resulted in a giant spike in usership was we gave away 5 Palm Pilots to the first 5 people to finish the lessons.
It's a very good idea.
Well, the problem is the week after. When usage dropped to a sort of a negative number.
Yeah. That, and you have to train them to use those Palm Pilots.
Well, in the research, the Palm Pilot, yeah, we didn't have to train them with Palm Pilots.
Yeah, any kind of incentives, anything like that you can do. Food usually brings people in. Anything like that is great. You can do to motivate them to do something. Brent?
Yeah, the name of the game in our job largely is attraction and generating interest in any particular technology or software application that you're going to want to promote. I found it interesting. I was in a committee that was dealing with proposed upgrades to the classroom technologies throughout the law school, and over the course of 45 to 50 minutes, we went over the various options of everything from spending lots of money on plasma screens and document cameras and these touch panel devices to slickly drop the screens and turn on and off the lights and all of this. And after that spiel was said and done, they commenced to launch into a 20-minute debate of whether they wanted chalkboards or dry erase boards. That was eye-opening for me. So afterwards, when I was speaking with the dean and he was trying to determine how much money he may or may not want to spend on the upgrade, he wasn't convinced that the faculty were willing or ready to use technology in the teaching environment. So that's kind of the challenge in my position. I get a lot of one-on-one time with faculty members working with PowerPoint presentations. I would say 80% of my faculty use PowerPoint at least somewhat. A lot of them use it almost every day, and that's nice. And I wanted to show one alternative to PowerPoint is this classroom performance system program. This is created by einstruction.com. Actually, I guess they're one of the vendors here, so you can stop by and chat with them at some point. Classroom performance system, it sort of gives you the ability, like she was mentioning, the web-based type in an answer and submit it to the instructor, but in this regard, it's not web-based. You generate, the faculty member would generate lists of questions or fact patterns, and he or she would create a lesson, and then the hardware attached to the CPU in the classroom would have a censoring device, and then each student or group of students would be handed out an electronic clicker. So when the question is presented on the screen, then the students would click their answers A, B, C, or D, or true, false, yes, or no, and you would have instantaneous response right there. So you launch the program, and then example of a multiple guess question. When you launch the question appears demonstrated. You can import graphics or charts, whatever you need to in there, and then the numbers 1, 2, 3 down at the bottom are those are the indicators of how many clickers, how many students are enrolled in that class. So as the students go about determining their answer, and then they press A or B, whatever their decided answer is, you would see the number tablets corresponding to the clicker numbers light up blue that they've responded. And then when you end the question, you could either choose to show the right answer, or you could choose to keep them in distress and not reveal the right answer, and they'd have to go do some legal research or whatever to ascertain whether they had it right or wrong.
The clickers are all anonymous, are they?
Yes. The only reason that they wouldn't be anonymous is if the professor chose to number 1, Bobby Joe. I mean, it would be up to the professor, and then you can kick out a histogram of where the answer spreads came. Yes, sir.
So, how many people actually use this? In my opinion, I invested into making this technology was sexy, and yet this one, I wonder how much users really get, how much we want to support students being afraid to raise their hands. Tell me how many prompts that your experiences are using like this.
Well, we're.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question is, how many faculty are using it at my school? And the answer to that, we're actually in the infancy of this. I've only got one professor currently using it, Alex Glashauser. He uses it, I would say, 4 or 5 times a semester. He's a Duke Law School grad, by the way. He would have probably wanted me to mention that. But Alex put on a demonstration for the faculty, and they showed up at lunchtime. Probably 19, 20 of them showed up, and I have 3 or 4 that I've installed it on their machines in their office. So I'm hoping over the next semester or so that I'll have more takers on this.
I'll add to that I have seen it demonstrated by another faculty member at my school.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, after the initial deployment, is the expectation that the actual content will be maintained by the faculty member, by the faculty member secretary, or by the IT staff?
That's still an evolving process. I see my role as getting it off the ground and sitting down with them and giving them a demonstration of the abilities of the system, and maybe help them create their first use of it. And then after that, they're their own chief cook and bottle washer. But I'm a 4-digit telephone number away for support and how to do things. Possible uses of the CPS. All of these Alex has used in his class. You could use it as an actual graded quiz where the program will store the responses in a database, and then you can import that into Excel or whatever you use to generate your grades. He uses it to gauge where a class stands on a particular topic, and if 70% of the class gets it wrong, well, he has an indication that either the students need to spend more time looking up things, or some more classroom time needs to be spent exploring that particular topic in depth. And then also there's the ability where you can, on the spur of the moment, create an ad hoc question. Oh, that's a good question. Let's just fire that up right now on the spot. In the old version, it was called ad hoc. In the new version of CPS, it's now an oral question. Why that is, who knows? You'll have to ask them. And then there's also a team-oriented activity, a Jeopardy type game that you can create for, I don't know, kicks and grins to keep student interest. I don't know. Here's their email address, einstruction.com, or here's the telephone number if you want to get in contact with them. Or, as I said, I believe they're a vendor, so you can stop by their booth.
Do you know what sort of history this program has in other schools?
That I do not know. I know that it's my understanding that this program was pretty much designed for the secondary education market, elementary schools, high schools, things like that. But my dean went to a tech show, I think, a year and a half back, and thought it was a pretty cool deal, and there you go, we have it. And it is I think it's a pretty good concept that you can get the instant interaction, but you don't need the laptop requirement. So that might be a way of getting the best of all worlds. It is rather spendy from my understanding. I'm not sure how much the initial software cost was, but the little blue R2-D2 sensor units that have to go in each classroom for the clickers to work, they're $300 a pop, and then batches of 8 clickers run you $500. So there is a certain amount of cost factor behind it, like anything in technology. Yes, sir.
As Alex, the professor, has he done any assessment of how this has affected the learning in his classroom?
Not that I'm aware of. I can ask him and get back to you. That's a good question.
I need the other one.
Attached at the hip, huh?
There you go.
While they're kind of getting settled, you can also do. I hope that you noticed that my PowerPoint presentation was very simple and didn't have paragraphs of information on there. A lot of times people use PowerPoint, they tend to put everything that they're going to say up on the screen. Kind of an alternative to using PowerPoint, you can also create kind of a Jeopardy environment, just like Brent was saying, on PowerPoint as well. And afterwards I'll run that and you can kind of see what that looks like. That's John's next.
Can you hear me okay?
Let's see.
How's that? All right, I'm going to start off by giving you guys a break from the presentation materials. What I'm going to talk about is basically how we do our job and what we're doing. As you've already noticed or gathered, I'm sure, our job tends to be a little bit more nebulous. It varies from person to person. How they go about doing it varies a little bit, but they do have commonalities. They are very similar along the way. Basically, it breaks down into gathering information and analyzing that information and then doing something with the information. Now, the approach I use is called Instructional System Design, ISD. There's a number of other approaches. They're all basically the same, different verbiage sometimes, things like that. Often, what seems to happen is the trainer, the instructional technologist, tends to be the one that's the point of contact. He's the one, he or she, is the one that the users are seeing all the time. Faculty, staff, students. They're constantly in touch with them about technology. They tend to go to them first in a lot of cases, and then we kind of redirect them. Now, in my case, I kind of like it that way, because if I've got them coming to me and saying, listen, I need this, I need that, I need the other, it allows me to take that information, keep track of what's going on in the school, and it allows me to know what the needs are. What do they need training on? What kind of technology do we need to be looking at? You know, Professor Millheiser is looking at doing some really advanced stuff with PowerPoint. Do we need to look at upgrading to PowerPoint XP? These are kinds of issues. And how many professors might use PowerPoint XP, for instance? So one of the first things that you're going to, that typically you do, is you conduct a needs analysis. And that's just what it sounds like. What are their needs? It can be formal, it can be informal. Simple surveys often suffice. You don't even have to go so far as to survey. You can go around and talk to them individually. This is what I did. My job is about 6 months old now at Ave Maria. And I came in, and my first goal was to meet the faculty members, sit down and talk with them a little while, find out what their expectations were, find out a little bit about what they needed, find out what they wanted to use, how they were using things currently, what their perceptions of the needs were for the other faculty as well as students and maybe the staff. There's lots of different ways to do this. Tells us what kind of skills, by doing a needs analysis, it's going to tell us what kind of skills they already possess. It's going to tell us what kind of skills they need. So it gives us a little bit of planning. Gives us a knowledge level, where they're at. That way when we do a training session, or we are looking at increasing their technology, we're not putting something in there that's way over their head or way beneath them. You put them in a classroom, especially the faculty, and it's beneath them, they're going to get real tired of you real quick. And if it's way above their head, they get just as tired, but it's more frustration, and they start to get real irritated with you real quick. Especially the faculty. And I don't blame them. I mean, if I get into a classroom and I'm in that situation, I'll start yawning or be just asking a dozen questions, and it ends up being disruptive and a complete mess. It also helps you with determining what kind of interests they have in particular areas. Like Brent was talking about, if you go into a meeting with faculty and you're talking about all this wonderful classroom technology and they spend 25 minutes discussing the benefits of dry erase over chalk, you've got an issue there that you need to start looking at dealing with. And getting that information up front allows you to plan for your future needs. If you don't have that information up front, you're in trouble. Because if Brent didn't know that ahead of time, he could be looking at putting all this stuff in here and then spending all this money and nobody's using it. This laptop is killing me. Yeah, it's not supposed to. We've already, just to reiterate, you guys have got lots of presentation materials already. I don't want to bore you with one more slideshow. That, and like I said, it tends to vary from point to point, so I don't really want to give you an outline because it'll change depending on the school, depending on the circumstances, and depending on the kind of models that they use. Now, what a needs analysis does not do, when you try to analyze the training needs of this population, what you're not doing is looking at specific applications or software. So you're not looking at this point, you're not looking at, okay, they want to do PowerPoint presentations and they want to put movies in these presentations. Instead, you'll be looking at something a little less than that, something more along the lines of, well, they really like to get some footage into their presentations, or they'd really like to get away from just giving them written outlines and put something on the screen. You've got an idea of where they're headed. That way you know where to focus your energies into finding more detail. And we're going to talk about actually getting that detail here in a second. It also doesn't provide specific solutions. Again, it's about a level of detail. Yeah, they want to provide some kind of film footage of courtrooms, for instance. How are you going to do that? Well, you've still got to determine that. That takes a little more work because it's going to depend on your audience. It's going to depend on the professor. It's going to depend on the presentation style, the classroom setup. There's a lot of depending factors, and at this point, you're not really looking at getting into that too much. Now, after you've got your needs analysis done, after you know what kind of training in general that they're looking at needing, you've talked to the faculty or you've done a survey and you've got an idea of what their technology needs are, wants, interest levels, now you're going to actually do more of a task analysis. Now you're going to look at, okay, professors, you got let's say half of your professors have said that they want to include some kind of courtroom footage in their classroom. Now what you need to do is sit down with those professors, and that's a priority. That's something that the majority of folks want to do. Now you can sit down with some of those professors and say, okay, what are you using now? If they're using Word, and some of my professors actually do use Word for presentations versus PowerPoint, and it can be done, they might want to switch over to something like PowerPoint, which is easier. Do they want to show something that is beyond? Right now our standard is Office 2000. Is what they're wanting to present in PowerPoint beyond the capabilities of Office 2000? Does IT need to start looking at upgrading to XP? Is there a solution for that? Is PowerPoint the solution that they need? You get into some specifics about what they want to do and where they want to go, then you can design a solution that's specifically fit for them as a group. Once you know where you're headed, we're gonna use PowerPoint. We're gonna incorporate movies and sounds and a little bit of animation, but nothing too great. Now you can look at actually setting up a class and teaching that. Now, again, we're down to specifics. If I'm dealing with faculty, pretty much forget about a class. It's not going to happen. I can hold a class all day long. They ain't coming. I'm going to have to meet with them one-on-one. It's just the way that it works. Now, if it was staff tends to prefer classes. They like to get in the group atmosphere. They like to sit down and learn in a group. And we can do it that way and get some good attendance. Their schedules are a little more flexible. Now, I tend to run hour-long classes. While their schedules are more flexible, they're also very much in a time crunch usually. And it doesn't do a lot of good to have them in 2-hour sessions. So I try to schedule them in 1-hour sessions whenever possible. And I may have multiple 1-hour sessions, but 1-hour sessions, no more than 2 hours at the very outside. Half days and days at Albany Law are out of the question. It ain't going to happen. They can't afford to be away from their desks that long. So I can't get them for that long. So again, we're looking at very specific things. What does my audience need in order to get the learning? Faculty, one-on-one typically, sit down with them. They want to learn one specific thing. They don't want to learn about PowerPoint in general. They want to know, how do I get a movie? How do I get this movie in my presentation? Not how does PowerPoint work? Staff tends to be a little more wide-ranging because they're dealing with the faculty, and they may be dealing with more than one faculty member. So they may have one faculty member that wants to get a movie in one way and another that wants to get it in another way. They need to understand the overall picture. And again, we go to something more of a classroom style at that point. After all of that, we've done a needs analysis, we've done a task analysis, we've actually conducted some training so that they know what it is they're doing. It's also a good idea to actually track who knows what and when. I kind of like this little screensaver. Apropos, by the way. For those of you that ever thought about being an instructional technologist, Well, you can see what we use for screensavers. Now, after we've done the training, we also want to kind of keep a record of who knows what. Again, this allows us to take a look at the needs analysis we've already done, formally or informally, and say, okay, well, I've got this priority taken care of, but maybe some of my faculty members haven't quite mastered that yet. Well, if I know that, then I can leave that as a priority for that particular faculty member and move on with the others. Or maybe I need to structure a full curriculum, and sometimes with the curriculum, you really need to learn one thing first before you move on to something else, as most of you know. Then I know which person I need to start with the more basic course or training and move on to the more advanced training. So keeping an idea of what's going on in the various departments or the various faculty members is also very critical to what we do. That's a very, very generalized viewpoint of how we do our job and what we do. Don't know if that helps anybody or not, but I hope it does. Any questions?
Two parts to this question. First part is, you have a list of standard supported applications. The second part to that is, do you limit your training and instructions to those applications? I'm asking specifically about some.
Do we have a list of supported applications, and do we limit the training to that list? At Ave Maria, we don't really have a list, so to speak, but we've got so few supported applications that we don't really need one. Basically, we're talking Adobe products and Office 2000. That's about it. Do we limit the training to that? Absolutely not. I've got one particular professor that loves to bring in the flavor of the month. Doesn't know how to use it, calls me up, says, listen, I've got this. How does this thing work? And I usually tell them, well, I don't know, but I will get back to you and we'll figure it out. And we don't limit it on purpose. See, she was worried about stepping all over these things, and I'm going to kill myself. We don't limit it on purpose. The reason is, if they're exploring new technologies, then that takes a lot of the burden from me having to do it. So if they're finding a use for it, or just exploring it and coming to a dead end and determining that it's not, all of the information is valuable for me. So anything that they go off and explore on their own is good for me, and I go ahead and give them the support that they need. That doesn't necessarily mean our IT staff supports it. Doesn't mean they can get technical support out of it, apart from what I can offer. But we try to be very open-minded about that kind of thing. Go ahead. PDAs. Do we support PDAs at Ave Maria? Yes and no. Officially, no. Unofficially, there are a number of people that do have them. We allow the software on there. If I'm asked a PDA question, I will certainly do my best to assist folks. It's not really a big issue, though. Most of our students have laptops. Most of our faculty are using the laptops or the desktop technology. Very few are bringing in the PDAs and really using them. So it doesn't come up a whole lot. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think these assessments are nice. I think they're a good thing, but I think if this is the point of the job, in my view, of what an instructional technologist ought to be thinking about and doing. I think Ave Maria might be an unusual place because it's a new law school, but most of us are dealing with faculty who have been teaching the same way for 20 years and are teaching the way that their professor at whatever I did in school they went and taught them how to teach, and using technology is not really a big part of their lives. So my view is I think an instructional technologist ought to be the person out there exposing faculty about new ways of teaching, about new ways of how students learn, about how they ought to bring this together and do something interesting and innovative in the teaching law school. So if all you're doing is assessing what they think they need now, then all you can tell yourself is where you've been and not where you're going. So what do you do to get there? How do people in this room react to that?
I'm not even going to try to put that into a synopsis. I agree with you completely. The purpose of the needs analysis is not to look at necessarily where you've been, but where you are. If I want to get one of my professors that's not currently using technology in the classroom to use it, the first thing I need to know is, what do they know about the technology? If they know nothing about the technology at all, and they're just pure chalk and board, that's all they've ever used, that's all they ever wanted to use, they've never considered it, you go into their office and there's dust on their keyboard, we're looking at a whole different animal from somebody who is not necessarily using technology to their full potential, but is aware of what's out there. So I would approach that individual a little differently in trying to sell him the technology versus somebody who is used to technology, knows how it works. Maybe they're using a little bit of it in the classroom. Now I can go into this person and say, you know what you're doing is great. I mean, paraphrasing, of course, you do it a little differently. But going in, what you're doing is wonderful. You know what, we might be able to improve on that, though. Have you ever thought about something like this? Have you thought about trying that? You know, we've got this wonderful new piece of equipment, and it'll do this for you. If I try that with somebody that's just chalkboard, not going to get anywhere. First thing I've got to do with that person is sell them on even using technology and what benefits it has for them. So it's more about knowing what your start point is, more about knowing where you're at right now so that you know how to proceed further. If you don't know where you're at, then it's hard to approach a person, basically, and it's hard to sell them on that idea. So I hope that kind of answers it a little bit. Please.
But also, again, just a lot of marketing, a lot of
Yes.
I'm here, I'm in your face, here's the new technology, try this. And what also helps too is faculty members on your side and get that faculty member to also advocate. I schedule myself into faculty meetings, into committees, always around. I mean, sometimes I audit classes. I actually go into a faculty class and sit through a class and talk to them one-on-one on what they can do. So there's definitely the needs assessment is a huge part of it, finding out where you are. But then beyond that, there's the marketing aspect to it and getting out there.
Well, and to follow up on that a little bit, I use my two people. I've got two professors that are very technology savvy, really like to use it in the classroom, and I knew would be easy sells for improving on that. Finding those two people was really important to me because now I can take those two faculty members and they're selling it to the rest. After I got them sold on it, sold on my position, sold on what I can do for them, they're going out there and talking to the other faculty members. And as you all know, with the faculty, once one gets going, they tend to talk to the others and hey, these are good ideas. They share ideas really well. You have a question?
Is there any concern that teaching people how to use PowerPoint really well distracts from the traditional interactivity in law school classroom?
Is there any concern that using PowerPoint can distract from the traditional law classroom? Traditional way of the law classroom runs. Sometimes. My job is to make it clear that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Like Patricia noted, you walk in the room and some professors have a Word document up and their entire outline, notes, and everything is on the screen. That's wonderful. To me, that kind of distracts exactly what you're talking about. It kind of detracts from what you're trying to accomplish, which is a lot of interaction, a lot of discussion, a lot of problem-solving skills, critical thinking. A better way might be to show them PowerPoint and point out, you can just put the major headings here and then discuss all those other points. You can have that off on the side written down. So trying to get them to understand how they can supplement what they're doing already with technology rather than try to replace it and end up actually rewriting the way the classroom runs. That makes sense?
And also to keep in the back of our minds too that technology may not be suitable for one particular class, or it's not always the answer. So just to always have that in the back of your mind too.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not what you need to do.
It's not the solution.
Go ahead.
I had a question about how your positions all came to be at your different schools. Was it something where you found that this was, basically what you were doing and you sort of renamed yourself, or was it something that was coming from the administration? Like if we all want to try and incorporate this kind of position in our schools, how do you do it?
My director fought for mine. Actually, they got the idea from CALI, I believe. I could be wrong. And with the webcast, I'm sure I'll find out if I am. But they got the idea. They thought it was a great idea. They were sold on the idea. Of course, it took them a little longer to sell the dean on the idea. But eventually, they managed to come up with the position. Now, being new as it was, it developed from there. They had an idea of what they wanted. They didn't really know how it would necessarily function, how it would fit in with everything, and I've kind of made it my own space. But that being said, mine was kind of created automatically. I don't know about Patricia and Brent.
I really don't know all the details. I just know that the director of computer research position, and I know faculty were talking about support in those technologies. So I know that's how the spin-off began. I've been there for 3 years.
Would you answer the question that she answered about who you report to and where your position fits?
Actually, I kind of report to two people in a way. The assistant director of the library is also our IT head. He's my immediate supervisor, and then the director of the library supervises that. I tend to report to both. Basically, I'm a part of the library staff, and as a subset, we have our IT staff at our particular location. But now, Ave Maria is a somewhat smaller Catholic private institution, so it's not quite as large as some of the public institutions.
How much actual technical stuff? Do you ever install the software, or do you ever fix a broken mouse?
Yes. Again, this comes to part of the service and developing a relationship with the faculty, staff, etc. I happen to be a bit of a computer geek myself, so I have some limited technical skills, and whenever I can, I apply them. It helps out the IT staff, helps me develop a rapport with the folks that I'm training, helps me assess their needs and where they're at technologically. So I've got a lot of pluses for that. And like I said, I tend to be the first one to be called. They'll call me, and then I'll pass it on to our network administrator or whoever needs to do it if it's well beyond my skills or I just don't have the time for whatever reason.
Can I ask to what extent you're supporting the Corel Office Suite programs, or if at all?
Corel? I think we might have one person using Corel.
Is it possible to do a quick class survey of that currently?
He wants to know the survey who used Corel WordPerfect or Corel environment.
Well, let's start with Corel. Who uses Corel?
Corel is
Oh, I thought she said Office in there too.
I think the question was, are you supporting that at your law school? So if there's users, are you able to support that?
That question would be a good one to answer as well, though. Whether or not are you sort of ambidextrous with the Office Suite programs between Corel and Microsoft, or is it one dominating over the other? Too many questions.
He wants to know if do you guys use both WordPerfect and or at the same time, do you have people that are doing that, and do you support that? And so showing you that, a combination.
And then I guess to follow on, to what extent would people tend to be using more of WordPerfect? And if not, then with the Microsoft stuff that's on the desktop. I guess to some extent who's doing WordPerfect.
Faculty faculty are exclusive WordPerfect.
Right.
Our students use
Right.
Word.
That's what we
got to learn WordPerfect because faculty want the documents emailed and they want to WordPerfect.
That's exactly the experience we had at Washburn Law School.
Yeah, we're running over. Is there any final questions that anybody wanted to give? Just to kind of, this was a little Jeopardy thing that was created, and it actually, there's a whole Jeopardy thing. But there was a problem between Microsoft Word and WordPerfect. Everybody had questions. Everyone wanted to kind of save everything as WordPerfect or go back and forth between the two applications. And as we all know, there's severe formatting problems. So came up with like a little Jeopardy thing to help training. So we kind of go through the, all the whole spiel. So you can use and be creative with PowerPoint, but you can also use products that fraction.
Did you do that in PowerPoint?
I did. I created this.
And of course, so since of course our email and phone numbers